Hello everyone, this is Jeff Murrin, here to keep the conversation going on the Odyssey by Homer, specifically the Robert Fagles translation of the book. And in this particular video, we are going to look at book 20. Portents Gather is what the title is. And it's interesting, I've been teaching this book and I've taught it for years. And one of my first comments here in this book is so old. My comment was, Athena keeps the suitors rude, so Odysseus doesn't go soft. All right. Surely, though, there's no concern for that, considering that these guys have been bleeding his whole household dry for 20 years, trying to court his wife, and have thrown stools at him and just wanted to ambush and murder his son while he was traveling around. So to me, that was a kind of a naive comment at first, because he's got plenty to be upset about. All right, but anyway, I'm going to begin this off, and I want to point out too that yes, Athena does play significant roles here in making sure that all of the things continue the way she believes they need to happen. Of course, the way we think of in our Western culture now, with the concept of God being all-powerful, the Judeo-Christian gods and things like that, not necessarily the case here, all right? Could Athena perhaps, sort of blink her eye and make all this stuff happen? I guess. Would Zeus have something to say about it? Possibly. Would Poseidon have something to say about it? Absolutely. So it almost seems as though there's there's little carrots that these gods put in front of the particular people that they are trying to help, so as it appears overall to the folks involved that it was Athena who helped me, but also I did a lot of work myself. I'll give glory to whoever helps me, but the actual grind has to come from the individual. All right. So I'm going to start reading about about 6 lines in. It says, "And there Odysseus lay." Okay. Remember, he was left to sleep the night. He slept on a little pallet that he made for himself. It says, plotting within himself the suitor's death, awake, alert, as the women slipped from the house, the maids who hoard in the suitor's bed each night, tittering, linking arms, and frisking as before. All right, so that's a little more information than we've gotten before, that some of these maids who work for Odysseus, and then therefore also for Penelope, have been taking the nights to go sleep with some of these suitors. All right, so that's the kind of thing that Odysseus really wanted to know, so he can know, all right, if I'm going to get rid of the suitors, I'm also going to get rid of all the people who have not been loyal to me. And of course, here we see them actually, we see their disloyalty on display. Continuing on, it says, the master's anger rose inside his chest, torn in thought, debating head and heart. Should he up and rush them, kill them one and all, or let them rut with their lovers one last time? The heart inside him growled low with rage, as a bitch mounting over her weak, defenseless puppy's growls, facing a stranger, bristling for a showdown. So he growled from his depths, hackles rising at their outrage, but he struck his chest and curbed his fighting heart. All right, nice epic simile there. There's another one coming here around line, let's say, 25, or I'd say more like 26, 27. It says, but he kept tossing, turning, intent, as a cook before some white, hot, blazing fire, who rolls his sizzling sausage back and forth, packed with fat and blood, keen to broil it quickly, tossing, turning it this way, that way, so he cast about. So, he is having a hard time sleeping, just tossing and turning, and then that nice epic simile, like someone cooking a sausage on a fire so it doesn't cook too much on one side. So the note I have underneath this is, here comes Athena, and Odysseus is asking her, how can I get my hands on these? What do I need to do? How can I plan? Because it just said that he's been mulling over this plan to get these suitors in my clutches, right? And he says, before the last break down there on the bottom of page 411, it says, "Show me the way, I ask you." "Impossible man," Athena bantered, the goddess eyes ablaze. "Others are quick to trust a weaker comrade, some poor mortal, far less cunning than I. But I am a goddess, look, the very one who guards you in all your trials to the last. I tell you this straight out, even if 50 bands of mortal fighters closed around us, hot to kill us off in battle, still you could drive away their herds and sleek flocks. So surrender to sleep at last." What a misery. Okay, going on and on and on. Okay, so, look, there are people who, you trusted on the battlefield, folks, when you went to sack the city of Troy. You trusted your comrade in arms, but your comrade in arms wasn't Athena. I'm here with you, okay? So rest. This will all end, all right? About line 65, 66 says, "When the queen had wept to her heart's content," this is Penelope, "she prayed to the huntress Artemis first of all. Artemis, goddess, noble daughter of Zeus, if only you'd whip an arrow through my breast and tear my life out. Now, at once, or let some whirlwind pluck me up and sweep me away along those murky paths and fling me down to the ocean river running around the world, rolls back upon itself." So Penelope is there, so distraught that she's actually asking Artemis, one of the archer goddess, to just shoot an arrow through my heart and just end it all. All right, that's how hopeless she feels at this moment. All right, now we can go on page 413, about line 89. She says, "Artemis, with your glossy braids, come shoot me dead, so I can plunge beneath this loathsome earth with the image of Odysseus vivid in my mind. Never let me warm the heart of a weaker man." Never let me warm the heart of a weaker man. None of these suitors is good enough for me. I'd rather be dead at your hands, Artemis, so I can live forever with a vision of Odysseus forever. That's better than the reality of spending the rest of my romantic life, if you will, with another man, one of these suitors. We see Odysseus's prayer about line 108. It says, he lifted his hands and prayed to Zeus, "Father Zeus, if you really willed it so, to bring me home over land and sea lanes, home to native ground. After all the pain you brought me, show me a sign. A good omen voiced by someone awake indoors. Another sign outside from Zeus himself." And Zeus, in all his wisdom, heard that prayer. He thundered at once out of his clear blue heavens, high above the clouds, and Odysseus' spirits lifted. All right? So just as he says this prayer, thunder strikes, and Odysseus is like, there it is. There it is. He's listening. I know he is. And here's something interesting too. There's a maid, a loyal maid, not one of the ones who's bunking up with one of the suitors, mind you. All right? On page 414, this maid also heard that thunderclap and says a prayer aloud. About 125, 126 says, "Zeus, Father, King of gods and men, now there was a crack of thunder out in the starry sky and not a cloud in sight. Sure, it's a sign you're showing someone now. So, poor as I am, grant me my prayer as well. Let this day be the last these suitors bolt their groaning feasts in King Odysseus' house. These brutes who break my knees, heart-wrenching labor, grinding their grain. Now let them eat their last." All right. But everybody is getting ready, let them eat their last, because this is a public feast that's going on. It mentions that on page 415, and everyone is getting ready for that. All right. And you will see people are still treating Odysseus, not knowing that it's Odysseus, treating him as, subhuman almost, like somewhere in between animal and human. All right, on page 416, line 190, it says, Melanthius sauntered towards them, herding his goats with a pair of drovers' help, the pick of his flock to make the suitors' meal. All right. Under the echoing porch, he tethered these, then turned on Odysseus once again with cutting insults. Still alive, he says, still hounding your betters, begging around the house. Why don't you cart yourself away? Get out. We'll never part, I swear, till we taste each other's fists, riffraff, and you and your begging make us sick. Get out. We're hardly the only banquet on the island. No reply. The wily one just shook his head, silent, his mind churning with thoughts of bloody work. All right. So then we have Philatius on page 417. All right. I'm going to start reading about line 248-ish. Okay. And Philatius it says, it's unbearable here, true. But I still dream of my old master. Lucky man. If only he'd drop in from the blue and drive these suitors all in a rout throughout the halls. Cowherd, the cool tactician Odysseus answered. You're no coward, and nobody's fool, I'd say. Even I can see there's sense in that old head. So, I tell you this on my solemn binding oath. I swear by Zeus, the first of all gods, by the table of hospitality waiting for us, by Odysseus' hearth, where I have come for help. Odysseus will come home while you're still here. You'll see with your own eyes, if you have the heart, these suitors who lord it here cut down in blood. Stranger, if only, the cowherd cried out, if only Zeus would make that oath come true, you'd see my power, my fighting arms in action. Eumaeus, the swineherd, echoed his prayer to all the gods that their wise king would soon come home again. So now as they spoke and urged each other on, and once more the suitors were plotting certain doom for the young prince, okay, because they failed at it before, suddenly banking high on the left, an omen flew past, an eagle clutching a trembling dove, and Amphinomus rose in haste to warn them all. My friends, we'll never carry off this plot to kill the prince. Let's concentrate on feasting. All right. So Amphinomus, is one of the suitors. Okay. So we had a switch there from everybody praying that this was going to work out, or talking to Odysseus that this is going to work out, and then we have this sign that comes up on the left of the suitors. And Amphinomus is one of the suitors, and he sees that sign come up on the left, and we've had this conversation. Signs that arise on the left are bad news. Eagle, dove. And he looks at that and he's like, uh-oh, everything's wrong. We won't be able to pull off this thing because they're making plans to get Telemachus again, and they failed miserably the one time. And now here's a sign saying it's not going to work out this time either. And so Amphinomus says, guys, this isn't going to work. Let's just focus on feeding our faces as we have done most other than that, the rest of the time we've been here. On the top of page 419, Telemachus has sat his father down, the beggar, and he says, now sit right there. Drink your wine with the crowd. I'll defend you from all their taunts and blows, these young bucks. There is no public place. This is Odysseus's house. My father won it for me, so it's mine. All right? You suitors, control yourselves. No insults now, no brawling, no. Or it's war between us all. So he declared, and they all bit their lips, amazed that the prince could speak with so much daring. Only Eupeithes' son Antinous ventured, fighting words. But let's knuckle under to our prince. Such abuse, such naked threats. But clearly Zeus has foiled us. Or long before, we would have shut his mouth for him in the halls, fluent and flowing as he is. So he mocked. Telemachus paid no heed. All right, probably a good idea. The last little section of 419, but Athena had no mind to let the brazen suitors hold back now from their heart-rending insults. She meant to make the anguish cut still deeper into the core of Laertes' son, Odysseus. This is where she's, making sure, digging that deeper. Maybe my comment wasn't so naive at the beginning, because it says right here that she is doing that to try to dig down deep and make sure that he's good and angry by the time everything starts to go down. It says, there was one among them, a lawless boor. Ctesippus was his name. He made his home in Same, a fellow so impressed with his own astounding wealth he courted the wife of Odysseus, gone for years. Now the man harangued his swaggering comrades. Listen to me, my fine friends. Here's what I say. From the start, our guest has had his fair share. It's only right, How impolite it would be. How wrong to scant whatever guest Telemachus welcomes into his house. Look here. I'll give him a proper guest gift too. A prize he can hand the crone who bathes his feet, or a tip for another slave who haunts the halls of our great king Odysseus. And on that note, grabbing an ox hoof out of a basket where it lay, and with a brawny hand he flung it straight at the king. But Odysseus ducked his head a little, dodging the blow, and seething just as the ox hoof hit the solid wall, he clenched his teeth in a wry, sardonic grin. All right? So they're still throwing things at him. Stools from before, an ox hoof now. All right? These people are getting too, I don't want to say they're going too far, but I mean they're just keeping it going. They've gone too far a long time ago. On page 421, we see some more intervention of Athena, and this is a very interesting thing that she does here. And she does kind of, I don't want to say possesses them. Well, you'll see. Okay. The last section on page 421, it says Athena set off uncontrollable laughter in the suitors, crazed them out of their minds. Mad, hysterical laughter seemed to break from the jaws of strangers, not their own, and the meat they were eating oozed red with blood. Tears flooded their eyes, hearts possessed by grief. The inspired seer, Theoclymenus, wailed out in their midst. Poor men, what terror is this that overwhelms you so? Night shrouds your heads, your faces down to your knees. Catch that? Night shrouds your heads, your faces down to your knees. Cries of mourning are bursting into fire. Cheeks rivering tears, the walls and the handsome crossbeams dripping dank with blood. Ghosts, look, thronging the entrance, thronging the court, go trooping down to the world of death and darkness. The sun is blotted out of the sky. Look there. A lethal mist spreads all across the earth. So here they are. Athena has kind of, I don't know if possessed is the right word, but she's made it so that they just burst out into uncontrollable laughter. They can't help themselves. They are just like doubled over with laughter, tears flowing because they're laughing so hard. But Theoclymenus, the seer, the prophet, stands up, and what he seems to see is entirely different than what they seem to be experiencing themselves. They're dying laughing. And he's like, night shrouds you. Everything's covered in blood. Like, you all are doomed. And you don't realize it. You don't have a clue. Down towards the bottom of 422, let's say a line 417, says, now all the suitors, trading their snide glances, started heckling Telemachus, made a mockery of his guests. One or another brash young gallant scoffed. Telemachus, no one's more unlucky with his guests. Look, What your man dragged in, this mangy tramp scamping for bread and wine, not fit for good hard work, the bag of bones. All right. Skipping a few lines. Says, so they jeered, but the prince paid no attention, silent, eyes riveted on his father, always waiting the moment he'd lay hands on that outrageous mob. And all the while, Icarius' his daughter, wise Penelope, had placed her carved chair within earshot at the door, so she could catch each word they uttered in the hall, laughing rowdily. Men prepared their noonday meal, succulent, rich. They'd butchered quite a herd. But as for supper, what could be less enticing than what a goddess and a powerful man would spread before them soon? All right, a groaning feast, for they'd been first to plot their vicious crimes. All right. So just more of the same, more of the taunting, more of the intervention of the gods, more of Penelope being so sick of it, more. All right? But it's coming. And it's obvious that it's coming. Athena just pretty much says it outright. So stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your time. That was book 20. Go ahead and read book 21, annotate book 21, have your own original thoughts on book 21, and I'll see you back here and I'll give you my thoughts on book 21. So until then, and as always, happy reading.